Over 2,500 years ago, a young prince named Siddhartha Gautama stepped outside his palace and encountered for the first time an old man, a sick man, and a corpse. These sights shook him to the core. Sheltered his entire life, he had never seen suffering. This awakening sparked a journey, not outward into the world, but inward, into the self. Through introspection and self-awareness, Siddhartha became the Buddha, the enlightened one. His journey continues to inspire millions seeking peace, clarity, and liberation from suffering. But what made his path so transformative? At the heart of his teachings lies a profound emphasis on self-awareness and introspection. In a world increasingly dominated by external distractions, social media, consumerism, and relentless productivity, the teachings of the Buddha remain strikingly relevant. Central to his philosophy is the cultivation of self-awareness and introspection, not as abstract ideals, but as practical tools for transformation. The Buddha did not offer a belief system to accept blindly. He offered a method to be practiced and realized through direct experience. This method involves turning the gaze inward, observing the mind and its workings with honesty, curiosity, and discipline. Self-awareness in Buddhist terms is not merely self-consciousness or reflection. It is a deep and sustained attentiveness to the present moment, a clear seeing into the nature of thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Introspection, meanwhile, is the deliberate act of examining one's mind, its tendencies, patterns, attachments, and aversions. Together they form the bedrock of Buddhist meditation and ethical living. This script explores the central role of self-awareness and introspection in the Buddha's philosophy. It will delve into how these practices lead to liberation, their relationship to impermanence and suffering, their formalization in the Eightfold Path, their embodiment in meditation, and their surprising relevance in the modern age. Each section builds on the last to reveal a cohesive vision of self-transformation through inner awareness, a vision as urgent now as it was in ancient India. Self-awareness in Buddha's teachings is not a passive observation, but an active, transformative process that leads to liberation. To understand the role of self-awareness in Buddhism, one must first understand the concept of sati, often translated as mindfulness. Mindfulness is more than noticing what is happening. It is a cultivated, intentional awareness that is both present and discerning. The Buddha taught that this quality of attention allows one to see things as they truly are. When a person becomes mindful, they begin to notice the arising and passing of thoughts, emotions, and sensations. This observation reveals a critical truth. Nothing is static or permanent. Through this realization, the grip of attachment begins to loosen. The mind becomes less reactive and more spacious. One is no longer caught in the automatic cycles of craving and aversion, which the Buddha identified as the roots of suffering. Importantly, self-awareness in the Buddhist tradition is not an end in itself, but a means to liberation. The Buddha's enlightenment came not through divine intervention or philosophical debate, but through deep observation of his own mind. He sat beneath the Bodhi tree and watched every arising thought, desire, and fear without judgment. This total presence is what led him to understand the nature of suffering and the path out of it. Self-awareness also includes ethical clarity. When one is aware of their motivations and intentions, they are more likely to act in ways that are aligned with compassion and wisdom. The Buddha repeatedly emphasized the importance of right intention and right action, both of which arise from a well-trained awareness. Thus, in Buddhist philosophy, self-awareness is a dynamic, engaged process, one that transforms ignorance into wisdom and confusion into clarity. Introspection serves as the cornerstone of right understanding, helping individuals to observe the impermanence of all things. One of the foundational insights in Buddhism is the doctrine of impermanence. According to the Buddha, all conditioned phenomena, everything that arises due to causes and conditions, is impermanent. Yet most human suffering stems from the illusion of permanence. We cling to people, situations, and even identities as if they will last forever. Through introspection, we begin to see the ever-changing nature of experience. A pleasant emotion, when observed, passes. A painful memory, when met with awareness, softens and fades. Even the sense of a stable self reveals itself as a collection of changing thoughts and sensations. This insight dismantles the illusion of a fixed identity and opens the door to a more fluid and compassionate way of being. The Buddha taught that deep introspection reveals the three marks of existence: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. These are not philosophical positions, but truths to be directly observed. Through careful observation, one begins to notice that everything is in flux. This awareness doesn't lead to nihilism, but to a gentle detachment that allows for greater peace and equanimity. Moreover, introspection cultivates patience and resilience. When we recognize that both joy and sorrow are transient, we are less likely to be overwhelmed by them. We become capable of meeting life's ups and downs with balance. In this way, introspection is not just a mental exercise, but a profound training in wisdom and emotional maturity. Buddhist practices such as meditation, self-inquiry, and reflective journaling are all tools for developing this inner vision. In retreat settings, practitioners spend days or even months observing their inner world. What emerges from this discipline is not escape from reality, but a more honest engagement with it. By seeing clearly, we suffer less. By cultivating self-awareness, one learns to detach from ego and desires, which are seen by the Buddha as sources of suffering. At the heart of Buddha's teachings lies the understanding that suffering, or dukkha, arises from attachment, particularly to our desires and the ego self. The ego, in this context, is not merely a sense of identity, but a construct of habitual thoughts, stories, and emotions that create a false sense of permanence and control. Buddha saw through this illusion and taught that true freedom comes from letting go. Self-awareness helps unravel this illusion. When we closely observe our thoughts, we see how often they revolve around defending, glorifying, or maintaining the ego. We notice how desires arise promising happiness, only to dissolve and be replaced by new cravings. By watching these patterns without judgment, we begin to see their impermanence and unreliability. This realization doesn't lead to self-rejection, but to liberation from the tyranny of unexamined desire. When we no longer believe every thought or chase every craving, we create space for deeper peace. The Buddha called this detachment equanimity, a state of balanced awareness that does not cling or push away. Moreover, detaching from ego leads to deeper compassion. Without the constant need to defend or assert the self, one becomes more open to others' experiences. The walls of separateness begin to crumble, and empathy flows more freely. This is the paradox of self-awareness. In turning inward and letting go of self-obsession, we connect more fully with others. Through practices such as mindful breathing, loving-kindness meditation, and ethical living, individuals cultivate a stable sense of self that is not rooted in ego, but in awareness. This shift is radical. It transforms suffering into wisdom and reactivity into intentionality. Buddha's Eightfold Path offers a structured method for developing introspective insight and self-awareness. The Noble Eightfold Path is the Buddha's guide to ending suffering, and it is fundamentally rooted in cultivating inner awareness. The path includes right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Each element of the path serves to deepen self-awareness. Right view and right intention clarify our understanding and motivation. They challenge us to see reality as it is and to act with ethical intention. Right speech, action, and livelihood focus on ethical conduct, which is only possible through self-awareness of how our behaviors affect others and ourselves. Right effort, mindfulness, and concentration are the meditative limbs of the path. Right effort guards against unwholesome mental states. Right mindfulness trains the attention to remain steady and clear. Right concentration develops the mental clarity and focus necessary for deep introspection. Together, these practices form a holistic system that addresses all aspects of life: thought, speech, behavior, and attention. They're not steps to be completed linearly, but qualities to be cultivated simultaneously. The Eightfold Path is a living guide, shaped and deepened through practice. For those serious about awakening, this path provides structure and clarity. It invites practitioners to constantly examine their inner world and align it with ethical and spiritual insight. In doing so, it turns ordinary life into a path of awakening. Meditation is the practical tool through which the Buddha's teachings on self-awareness are realized and internalized. While the Buddha's teachings offer rich conceptual frameworks, they are ultimately experiential. Meditation is the primary tool through which practitioners internalize these teachings. In silent observation, the theories of impermanence, suffering, and non-self become lived realities. Vipassana, or insight meditation, is particularly geared toward cultivating self-awareness. Practitioners observe their breath, bodily sensations, thoughts, and emotions with equanimity. Over time, they see the transient and conditioned nature of all experiences. This practice cultivates clarity, patience, and insight. Meditation also trains the mind to become less reactive. In the stillness of meditation, one sees the gap between stimulus and response. This awareness allows for more intentional choices, breaking the cycle of habitual reactivity that causes suffering. Furthermore, meditation enhances emotional regulation. Neuroscientific studies now confirm what Buddhist practitioners have long known. Regular meditation reduces stress, increases emotional resilience, and supports mental health. These findings underscore the practical benefits of Buddha's emphasis on inner awareness. Through daily practice, meditation becomes more than a technique. It becomes a way of being. The mind becomes a sanctuary, a space of presence and clarity. As the Buddha taught, liberation is not found in external conditions, but in the deep peace of a well-trained mind. The modern relevance of Buddha's introspective practices is seen in their application in psychotherapy, mindfulness programs, and personal development. In the 21st century, Buddha's teachings on self-awareness and introspection have found renewed interest, especially in the fields of psychology, neuroscience, and personal growth. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn, is a secular adaptation of Buddhist mindfulness and has helped thousands manage stress, anxiety, and chronic pain. Psychotherapies such as dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, and acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, integrate mindfulness and introspection to help individuals regulate emotions and increase psychological flexibility. These practices echo the Buddha's emphasis on observing internal experiences without judgment and acting from awareness rather than impulse. In corporate environments, schools, and even prisons, mindfulness programs are being implemented to foster emotional intelligence, resilience, and focus. These modern applications prove the universality and adaptability of the Buddha's insights. Personal development movements also draw heavily from Buddhist teachings. Concepts like ego dissolution, non-attachment, and present moment awareness have become part of mainstream discourse. While sometimes diluted, these ideas still carry the transformative potential that the Buddha envisioned. The modern revival of Buddhist introspective practices suggests a deep cultural yearning for meaning, presence, and peace. In an age of information overload and emotional disconnection, the path of self-awareness offers a return to simplicity and clarity. The Buddha's path to enlightenment was not built on blind faith or dogma, but on the courageous act of turning inward. Through self-awareness and introspection, he uncovered the truths of suffering and its cessation, offering a timeless map for liberation. These practices remain powerful today, offering tools to navigate modern life's complexities with clarity, compassion, and wisdom. Self-awareness reveals the mind's patterns. Introspection dissolves the illusion of permanence and selfhood. Together, they nurtured the insight needed for ethical living, mental balance, and spiritual awakening. As we embrace these ancient teachings in our contemporary lives, we honor not only the Buddha's legacy, but also our own potential for awakening.